Namaskar. I am Dr. Meera Dass and I welcome you to Vartalaap. I am Meera Das and basically I'm an architect, and then I got into heritage conservation. I was engaged by Air India to look at the art collection, and they have a huge, massive art collection, and it gave me an opportunity to look at each and every piece and the Indian artists, etc., etc. And with this background, I feel I am qualified to talk about Golak to begin with. Has 4 arms, and he has a golden heart. Golak he is a great architect, but he is a great cook. One of my earliest, one of our earliest interactions and knowing each other was when he was doing this film for PRADIP. He used to cut hair, or do hairdressing.
Make wigs.
I will pass it on to Golak, and the trigger point is that he and his nieces, we were all together in Bhopal, and he cut all our hair. so that was long back. And Golak has to tell us about this experience, because filmmaking is kind of completely different, and it has a completely different environment. It requires a completely different skill sets, and he got into it. He was doing it, and they were doing like 200 or so many hairdressing thing in a day or whatever. I mean, it was quite an evolved thing. Golak, please let us know about it.
I'm going to tell you some hairy stories now.
Tell us. Yeah.
I used to make perspective drawings, for architect friends who couldn't visualize their buildings because they stayed in 2 dimensions. And I made a lot of money per day, lots of money. But after I made the money from one drawing, which is to be about 10 grand an evening, 40 years back, and it made me complacent. But what saved me was I didn't take more work when I had money in my pocket. And so some point, I did a drawing as a joke, and it got happened. It just got built. It was a joke I cracked, and it got built. Then I realized that you can't undraw things, you can't unsay things. You have to be very, very serious about it. And then I couldn't handle that seriousness, and I said, I'm not going to do perspective drawings for other architects. I will do something else. So I decided to join a film unit as an observer. Then my friend Pradip Krishnan and Arundhati Roy said, why don't you become a makeup assistant? So there are 7 makeup artists that flew from England one after the other because there wasn't enough money. It had to be shared little by little. And I became their assistant. So I learned everything possible in makeup, because it was a film that was span across 60 years. So actors had to be made up to be looking 20 when they were 40. And the 40, the natural chef, then the 60 and the 80. So I learned corrective makeup, aging makeup, special effects, prosthetics, blood and gore, everything. And I got conned into a full-time job, because I said, how many months? He said, 9 months. I said, no. I've done a job which lasted only 20 minutes. I ran away from there. I smoked my way out of that studio because, the first job I had done. Anyway, one of the things I talk about is no borders, no boundaries. Nothing is in isolation. Anything and everything that you do in life will help you in everything else. So how does hairdressing connect with architecture? Because in architecture we do all these cross sections. So I started chopping up people's heads in cross sections, and I decided how the hairline would be. And that was then I cook. So I started cooking hair, because if I had to perm hair, for my wigs that I learned to make, I had to cook them. I had to dye them. Later I used the same pressure cooker to cook food to feed people. Sorry, that's science. It sounded very hairy. But I cleaned them up all right. But so that's how it all started. The discipline in architecture really made me, qualified sort of hairdresser. Also, prosthetics. That also got me connected to surgery. I got 3 volumes of book organized by World Health Organization for barefoot doctors, meaning like at a building site, if there's an accident, I have to do surgery, I have to stitch people up, or I have to like do those you put like what do you call this lakdi ka lagate, then you put
splinters.
Over there. So everything was connecting to everything. And then when I built the sets for electric moon, and there I had to do a brand new by then I got qualified from makeup artist to set designer, because like everybody knew I studied architecture. So there I learned on my own to do time management and also be frugal, and I don't know, like I learned to understand material, because there was so little money. We had to make magic out of the money, like the lighting sets, lighting grid I had to do for PRADIP. Because you started head racing, I'm jumping into architecture from head racing in a roundabout way maybe, but I had told PRADIP, let's do a lighting grid, incorporate the lighting grid into the studio thing I was designing. He said, no, the English filmmaker is coming, the cinematographer, they'll do it. And they asked for a budget of 1 lakh, and I did the grid for 200 rupees, because I didn't do a grid. So I questioned, do we need a grid? How many lights? I asked the light boys. They said 2 HMIs, the big lights, which are like 30 kilos each. And how many minis? About 10, maybe they're a kilo each or something. And how many people will climb up the lighting grid? Those are the basic questions. Finally, all I needed is 2 GI pipes to stay on the wall plate and the base plate for it. And I'll be bending. So I did a counter thing. So I tied coconut rope to the roof. And the pipes I borrowed from the hardware store. The GI pipe I scavenged from somewhere. I spent just 200 rupees to do the welding. And we managed doing all the lighting we needed to do. It was flexible, it was modular, like that. Because I look at the valley upside down, I'll come to that, I managed doing things for peanuts. The next talk we might do is called Architecture and Alchemy. I'm advertising myself now, where I say how you could build out of nothing actually. Yeah. Because you have a computer, you compute. Maybe you don't need to compute. Like this thing I did for the lighting grid, I didn't compute. I used my instinct, and I think instinct is much more important than intellect. And maybe your intellect is based on what you learn instinctively.
It's also the question of, Golak, it's also a question of seeing. Once you start seeing, once you start getting down to the base,
not looking but seeing,
and recognizing. I mean, even bamboo is all around, and everything is there. I know the kind of roofs you have made. You've jumped to architecture, but I was going to go through cooking. So anyway, even the kind of roofing that has been done in Pradip's place in BARIAAM, you just can't do it till you know the material very well.
This lady, the latest roofs I did, we did it for peanuts also.
Yeah. So forget about the cost for the time being. Cost is extremely important, but knowing the material is equally important. Why people hide behind all kinds of material is because it is, and pay the price, is because they don't even understand the material.
And who pays the price?
And
all
even
of us.
The RCC, even the cement people don't understand, because cement is also a beautiful material. It has been used beautifully. Although one can ideologically talk about environment and the price and the cost and all that, but even people who use cement don't know the material, I would say. They just don't.
No, it's much more complicated, the water cement ratio,
So
that's where
people don't understand even that. Is all the time saying you have to see, you have to feel, you have to...
So when you're talking about seeing and understanding material, I have to say, like, what really protected me from, going crazy is I wanted to ask the basic questions about material. What's the most, like take a couple of architects sitting here, what is the most prominent quality of matter. Will you tell me? Architect Sahab Battai, it's malleability. Like in school, before you join in architecture, before you think about structural engineering, that we're told in physics that matter is malleable. How many of us use the malleable aspect of steel? If you turn and twist it, that's pre-stressing. You see it in little fruit carts, you see it in big sort of flyover things. But look at this, whoever architect's done, he hasn't understood that. Because you are also slaves of set squares and T squares. The moment you turn and twist, you are like gaining so much energy, it's not funny. And the first time I used metal for somebody's gate, I did a model out of clothes hanger. And I realized you can bend it and can weave it. So all the steel work, the grills I've done is not welding. I weave it like bamboo.
Yeah.
So bamboo and steel has this common property,
But
that we have to understand.
But also not just about the material, but the non-material. I mean, look at the light, where the sun comes out, where it sets, how the trees around.
Yeah.
And I think there is the moment you all moved to BARIAAM and started looking at Satpura ranges and the jungles of central India and all that, I think that was another world which opened up to you.
Yeah, that's a big world, but at this point I feel like interfering again. And I have to say, when I went to learn pottery from Gurcharan Singh, the biggest potter in the country,
even that.
I found Tao Te Ching, the version translated by somebody called Jane English. That became my Bible. The 13th chapter says, 36 or 30 spokes share the wheel's hub. Is the center hole that makes it useful. Shape clay into a vessel is the center space that makes space within that makes it useful. Makes doors and windows, it's the space within that makes it useful. So profit comes from what is there and usefulness from what is not there. So when you're talking about non-material, I just jump to that because there are so many things that happen between lines, between words, and we have to slow down. You have to slow down. You have to learn to see instead of just grazing past. I mean, I did an exercise with 600 architecture students, and I said, who do you love the most? They said, Mama, most of them. Do you know your mama's face? They said, yeah. Her nose, her eyes, her ears, And so they said, yes, of course. And I said, okay, why don't you close your eyes, think about your mama, and draw. You got half an hour, you draw your mama. Everybody was stuck. And they felt very cheated that they haven't seen them, they cheated by themselves, that they never looked at their mother properly. Next day they came back, they were all shining. One little suggestion or two suggestions at work, like they said, Mama, you really look like this. They kiss their mother and come back. And suddenly they're full of mama. So can you be full of leaves and flowers and trees and rocks, learn to see. Most of my drawings I do without looking at the paper because I have to see. And then that led to, this is talking about the unsaid things. What is it? The transient and intransient things or something, no? What is it? Things you can hold in your hands, things you can't.
Tangible
and intangible things. So when I learned to see, my drawing suddenly became overnight, became very, very easy. I started seeing so much. I started seeing grass flowers in the cracks of rocks. That has some other meaning also. But you see so much. You feel so filled up, so full, and you start understanding the plenitude of life. There's so much around to give and take, And then that led me to this thing about that I learned to listen. Because all my friends, film friends and musician friends, they like all the Beatles songs, my friends know all the lyrics. I couldn't, all I need is love, that's where I got stuck. After that, what? I don't know, Then I started saying, nobody loves me, but because you don't love people, you don't give, you don't get love back. So you stop saying nobody loves me, you start loving first. And so that goes to listening. Then when I learned to listen, when did I learn to listen? Because I started playing the talam for my Kathakali dancer friends. And I said, I don't have any music background. They said, no, it's very simple. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and such complicated music can go around that central spine. And once I understood, I started listening. And then I could get lyrics by heart. Odia songs, Telugu songs, Tamil songs, Malayalam songs, Bengali songs, English songs. And then my life became richer and richer and richer. And so I don't know how long we can talk, but we can also continue later. But maybe we can go outside if they're shutting down the gallery. We can, tomorrow is there, day after is there, day after, next year is also there.
Yes.
Because this is where I would also say, people fret about not having time. Time tumhara baap ka nahi, tumhara mama ka nahi, na? Time is there in its own place. You can expand it, you can contract it according to you can't trap it in a circular format or a per chart. I don't even believe in deadlines. Deadlines make you dead, no? They will chop off your head. For the Maharaja, you haven't finished your project. But we're not working for no Maharaja, we're working for ourselves. We have to figure out what to do with our time and our effort, how much we can see, how much we can listen. Somebody saying, I love you, listen to that.
But you talked about seeing and we talked about hearing, sound, and I'll get you back to smell, the smell of the food. I'm bringing you back to food. So food is another thing where I think we've had one of the most beautiful conversations, and we've had most beautiful
food that you
grow
yourself. Food that you grow yourself.
So food that you grow yourself, but Golak would invariably invite a whole lot of people for dinner. And
not my house. I don't have a permanent house, so it'll be like somewhere.
But then it starts by going out to purchase things, even while people are coming. They're coming, so you go out, you start buying what goes with which food. And of course, fish was always there. And so absolutely delicious food emerges out of it. And it's not just about the fragrance, but also about how the food looks. It's so critical. The color combination. Like at one point, you made these 5 red color salad of 5 red things. And I thought, oh, this looks very nice, so common, and yet it is so special. So, we're combining all this with architecture.
Finally, yes. Finally, we're talking about 5 Panchabhuta, the 5 elements of nature, and Pancha, what is it? What is 5 senses?
5 senses, yes.
When you're aware, when you're completely alert about the 5 senses and 5 elements, that means you are like connecting with nature, your nature and nature's nature. When they get together, you're not doing any violence. You are going with the flow. Like last show, I sang this song about flowing like a river. And that means so much. It's just one element, but the river is made out of 5 elements, And so everything is merges with everything. There is no borders, no boundaries. Punto finale. For me, whatever you have to say.
No, but it's a way of living that one is talking about. It has to combine so many more elements. They are all there. And the richness you can provide.
You have to hear, you have to smell, you have to feel.
You have to feel, yes. And I must say, I'll just narrate a very small incident. We held this workshop with children around Sachi. Now, Sachi by itself is so visually powerful and, of course, spiritually powerful. And it's a center of great power. If you know, the more you know it, the more you can submerge yourself into that. There is silence which so speaks to you. So we held a workshop with children in that, school children around that, and I distributed papers to them. And I said, why don't you just draw? Now, children are sitting in front of Sachi. They know the place, they come there, and what they were drawing, we gave them a little crayon set, we gave them papers, we said, why don't you just draw? And they drew 2 mountains, the sun rising a river flowing in front and a little boat. It is such a learned art. They are not seeing what is around them. They're not feeling what is around them. And I thought, this is really, I mean, we are causing mutation. It is criminal to actually stop them from seeing and feeling. So we, at some point, we said, okay, let's have a look at whatever is around, and we saw it and we said, oh, this is so beautiful, what have they done here, what have they done there, and this and that. Then we sat down, we came again and we sat down and distributed another set of paper, and we said, let's draw something now, without giving them any theme, without giving them anything to draw. And we saw some of them have responded, and this kind of element has got into their sheet. And so with a little, triggering, nudging, triggering to see, they started absorbing so much more. And it started coming out into whatever they were doing. And I think at some point, so we did 3 rounds of it, and there's a clear how the children responded to what their environment around, and how they have been taught not to respond to what they see. And the drawings, when you start judging and you start saying this comes first, and first prize and second prize, it's all completely based on what has been taught in class, what the teacher teaches.
Gratification.
So
draw a mango like this.
Yeah.
And there are thousands and thousands different kinds of
mangoes.
I had my first conservation class with conservation students. I did 3 days of them teaching me stuff. So I give them, empower them as teachers, and then the 4th day I made them sit down under a neem tree, and I got them through this breathing exercise, and open your eyes and pick 5 neem leaves around where you're sitting. And so there are 25 leaves that were picked. And I said, draw them without looking at the paper. Be a pentagraph. Just draw the contours of the edge. And then they all compare these leaves, and they're all drastically different from each other. You knew they were neem leaves. It's like the binary equation, and they're all different from each other. How can you just decide to pick a formula from a book, and does it apply to everything? How can you convince your client with a frozen set of blueprints that they're going to get that? Because the space-time factor, when it comes in there, it'll, like I draft a drawing in 1:50, and you also do that. They look different from each other. Yeah. If you do it in 1:500, it looks different. And what does the client know who has never drawn? So we pretend. We live a life of pretension in architecture practice. That, I understood, he's done fantastic drawings, and the building is not what you draw. It's something else, because you're not drawing with a fat pencil or a thin pencil or a rapidograph. You're building with actual bricks, actual stone, actual metal. You have to understand them first. There are like maybe 1 million different kind of doing dry stone masonry. And if you haven't learned to see, how can you be a conservation architect to even do partial conservation?
So even in your tree drawing phase, you had this long phase of drawing trees and drawing them in all seasons, and sometimes without leaves, sometimes. So you did it for 5-6 years, I think.
I still do them.
No, when you started after that, till the time the book came out and all that. It was, and every season. I mean, I must say that you had a fantastic companion and people around you and all that. So where like Pradeep would come to photograph one flower which flowers on the 15th of June or XYZ, and he would come all the way from Delhi, fix his camera and photograph that flower on a particular tree which grows on a particular time of the year.
15 times. 15 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, knowing not just the woods, but also knowing
Understand the diversity.
Knowing the trees.
Yeah.
from the forest,
And the
no, in the
tree
woods.
by
And
itself is also diverse.
Yes.
Example of diversity.
in so many,
you know.
the whole year, it changes its color, it changes its the way they behave. And I never knew that there were so many trees in that small in the
Little
in
garden
the
there in
little
front of you, yeah.
little means, I mean, Satpura jungles are very large, but in that patch of the jungle there were so many trees. It's amazing
And
that
so
it
many
never
avatars.
kind of never finishes. They continue to kind of start looking at the grasses, they start looking at the kind of birds which would come, then start looking at the kind of insects which would come there.
And the weeds under them.
And
And the weeds under them and the
and
flowers.
yeah, it was, I think that was a great phase.
And the episfloria, the fly-like honeybees,
Yeah.
who are so important. Now we lost all of them in Varda, one go. We take pride in the fact that we have the biggest population of honeybees, but this one gone because everybody is asked to do, though we do natural farming there, but so much pressure from the market about using, we
Honey.
decide, we like killing ourselves.
Yeah.
One landscape architect who asked me to give a budget of 132 crores for the Jaipur project, he was bragging about his housing that he was doing for a particular airlines out of Bombay. And he says, here we have impact lighting on this tree, and here is impact lighting that hill. I said, what about the little things there, the bees and the birds? He said, oh, we didn't think about it. He didn't know that there are so many kind of wasps, so many different kind of wasps that help ficus do regeneration. Without the wasp, ficus tree will never grow. Without a particular kind of bird eating in the burga, the peepo seeds, there'll be no trees, and we can't even process these seeds. Nature has to do it. So
Yeah, I tell you, but somehow the more you build, or the more you advance, or the more progress you make, the poorer you become. And it is actually very sad, because the first thing people do is, I mean, this is something which really needs to be tackled, is they kill the earth for white ants. They want to clear the earth of white ants. And there's so much poison which is kind of pumped into the earth. So I don't know which way we are going, Golak, but I have learned so much from you. Your tree phase, your cooking phase, your water.
I'm still cooking.
Watercolor painting phase, and
No,
and
at
and
this
your
moment,
architecture phase.
Talking about painting landscapes. I was
Yeah.
when I was working on a landscape project, one morning I woke up, my landscape architect friend gave me a picture card of a manicured garden, and I suddenly woke up. These are like aha moments, And I said, my God, this is so beautiful. But it's a design landscape. And within that design landscape also, I knew that next morning you won't have the same photograph. Next hour you won't have the same photograph. So Mother Nature paints like every second, maybe every microsecond paints a landscape. So I stopped doing easel painting on landscapes. I started growing trees with my friends, because that's what I call, I wrote a story for Landscape magazine. They wanted to write about the visitor center. Then I kept postponing it because I didn't have any drawings. They wanted, and then one day I said, okay, I'm going to give you something very special. So landscape painting in action. Who is doing the landscape painting in action? Mother Nature, to begin with. But even a landscape architect is in such a privileged situation to do this landscape painting in action. What a privileged situation. You can do so much, True. It's not about just color and texture, hard landscape where you get the money from, and soft landscape. It's what you do with trees, plants, and the Panchabhuta again, like how many wasps, how many butterflies, how many squirrels, how many, what do you earthworms, how many
Spiders.
khargos and how many rabbits and how many tigers after, whatever, whatever, the carnivores coming in.
But even your rock garden that you made, it's a fantastic story how the kind of rocks, I mean, it is not as simple as sandstone, but there are sandstones.
You're talking about Jaipur, Jodhpur, visitor center, where I discovered this ripple stones. And so
all the
added
ripple
these large
stone and
blocks of ripple stone, which are like basically sandstone, and the ripples have been petrified, And so for the Jodhpur project, I used that in a big way. I did a big installation, and Pradip calls it Manhattan.
yes,
Because
because you made those kind of kept them vertical, na?
yeah, without
And that
cement, without
is-
thing,
yeah.
learning about the specific CGs of each stone, and they're supporting each other. I just shoved them into the sand, and there are about 100 pieces, and the age difference between the first and last is 1.75 billion years.
Amazing.
So
Just the
that's time for
scale
you.
is
That's time for you. You want it
mind-boggling.
like right now, this second. Mama, I want my burger now.
Now.
My dosa now. No, too bad. It takes a million years to learn to make a dosa properly. You have to understand that.
So, Golak, we talked about architecture. We've
Are
still
we
to
going
talk
on
about.
talking? Are people like lurking
And-
behind the door saying, get out, get out?
Yeah.
Or shall we take it for granted unless they come down with guns?
And start moving us, pulling the mic
Okay.
away from our faces.
Okay, if our friends are with us, we are with them, we can have a little longer conversation. We can go out and chat and get to know each other also.
But formally, I would like to thank you for this lovely event,
thank you for
inviting
coming,
me.
all
And
you-
we've not even talked about the paintings. I would have loved to look at each one. Tomorrow morning, maybe we can
No,
get
no
your
morning, it's too hot. We start at 4, but we can have separate conversation with
on
the goose. Well,
tomorrow we'll do it in depth because I
Yeah.
love the. I mean, one can
Okay,
love
we
to
can
dwell
do that.
on
but
section by
I'll
section.
touch on this now. That special request from
Because
special
from
lady.
yeah.
See, people. I mean, I paint now and then
Yeah.
because 90% of my time goes into architecture, and so so people ask me because there's big gaps between my painting activities. I draw more or less every day, but when I paint and when I draw also, like these big gaps. So I experiment. What do I start? कहाँ से शुरू करूँ? तस्वीर नहीं बन रहा है, क्या करूँ, है ना? So I thrash around, and it's usually like I pick up some material, whether it's charcoal or ink or watercolor or oil, and I fool around. And it's the joy of just fooling around with material, the materiality of it,
Yeah.
materiality. Huh? So she's written a beautiful
Okay.
essay about this, about
Okay.
how material teaches us to do things and how we should respect that aspect. So, I sort of sometimes I would take and I'm also obsessed with not wasting anything, not a grain of sand, not a blade of grass, So I take this broken conte or whatever pastels, and I start rubbing it on paper like a child would do. But then I see images turning, it starts talking to me, it starts telling me a story.
Yeah.
Like the mitti tells the Kumar how to make a matka, the material tells me what to paint, what to draw. My mind is controlled by material. So intellect and instinct
Yes.
are going together,
Yeah.
And when I draw, my mind starts rambling. Can you have a completely quiet mind, any of you? Then you are like, you really arrived. But my mind is rambling all the time, as you can see. Sometimes I voice it, and sometimes I process it through drawings or through, I don't know, other things, And so all of these have been completely not planned.
Yeah.
Not planned. I was fooling around with watercolor to these two, for instance. They're totally on wet. When the paper was completely soaking wet, I spread color, and they did their own thing. And then I realized, oh, that's a Big Bang. That's how Earth was. And this was oxygen, single cell structures. So many crore years back, when these creatures happened, Mother Earth was like still very young. So this single cell structure started creating oxygen. That's why we're here. And that was so many crores years back, you know. And so I didn't have the story when I painted. But last time when I did a show at IIC in Delhi, so I put everything together. And it was initially about laughing at the government. But it started with, you know, the earth, your scale of what do you call, your sorrow, your scale of your ego. You know, that's only one tiny fraction of the universe, the first one. You know, within that there are many solar systems, and within the solar system, Earth is somewhere. But the Earth, the first one is the size of the Earth. The second one is the sun, and that little pea-like thing, or you know, that's the Earth, and then that's sun, and then the bottom left is the sun down there, little thing, pea-like thing, and that's Antares, Arcturus, the biggest star, Arcturus and sun, and the next one is Arcturus and Antares. So next to Antares, how big is the Earth? You can't even see. And where are we? Where are our sorrows? Where is our pride? How big is your ego? How big is your need? How big is your sorrow? You know? And so we're talking about time nahi hai, space nahi hai. Kitna space hai? Kahan jana hai? Jao. Keep flying through space. I think you should stop it here. People are getting.
Okay. It was a great exhibition, Golak.
Thank you. You haven't even seen it, my darling.
Yeah, I have not seen it. I've only seen the catalogue, but looking at it, it would take time. I would look at each and every piece. And I feel very fortunate that you put up this exhibition, and I am able to talk to you about it. Vibha is here, and we're happy that she's here. I welcome all of you to this Vartalaap.
Thank you, little big
which
kids.
I will put up on YouTube,
Thank
and
you,
I hope you all see it.
Kids.
And
Mr. Water Skater.
And I must introduce my team. There is Sarthak.
My Lala beta.
Sarthak is my son, and it's because of him that we are doing Vartalaap. And Ujjwal, he's my son as well, but
shiny sun. Ujjwal means bright.
Ujjwal.
He's shining, isn't he?
Shining
especially his hair. His mop of
and
hair.
the two of them put together, whatever you will see on YouTube in future, it is these two with their technical support and with their support that I do it. And I would like to
before to thank all of you. Without you, this life wouldn't have been possible.
Golak, we are sitting very close to Hussain Doshi Gufa, and I think the inspiration of Hussain Doshi Gufa comes from rock shelter and the painting on the rock shelter, and somewhere they are interpreting the whole thing in this in the Gufa concept. But I find that you have always integrated architecture and painting, and you've always talked about architecture in so many ways. One of the ways, I mean, you're talking about, even this exhibition is all about Prakriti and
human nature.
Human nature.
Nature and human nature.
Prakriti and
Pravriti.
Pravriti.
Yeah.
So, can you define where one starts and where one ends, or how do you integrate the two? At some point, you were also kind of talking in terms of alchemy. Now, these are difficult concepts to understand, but you had explained it in a very good way in your Routledge book. So, I would like you to kind of talk about that. These two things. One is the title of this exhibition, and what you mean by that. And the second is about alchemy and how are you integrating that to architecture. Because it's a much larger thing than architecture, or it's about life, philosophy,
it's
etc.
about life itself.
Life itself, yes.
So when I was, my friend Pratap organized this show for me. I wasn't serious about it. Then when the invitation came, paper came, I said, now I need to name the exhibition. You know, you might say, what's in a name? But it sort of, you know, it streamlines you into something. So first I decided to call it drawing from nature. Drawing is something I'm very, very serious about. I mean, you look at the meaning of drawing in a dictionary, there are about 16 meanings. Then there's an artist who talked about 160 different ways of drawing. You draw money, you draw blood, we draw it, you know, I draw you to me, you know, there's all kind of things. And so we're constantly drawing. We're drawing in thin air. When you're seeing something, you're also drawing.
Inferences, drawing inferences, or whatever.
And so I started understanding the difference between seeing and drawing. And seeing is, seeing and looking. Okay. So I thought if I do name my exhibition drawing from nature, it covers everything. So I can be completely random, which I love the idea of randomness, you know. So then I bumped into Amitam Balaji, and he had all these bandars, and I have a special relationship with langurs. You know, I feed them, and I was picked up by a langur when I was 6 months old, and I was taken away from our little courtyard. And so the villagers, you know, retrieved me somehow.
This
so my
sounds
mother,
like BARIAAM joke, but anyway.
No, it's not a joke. It's a true story. It's a true story. Cross my heart, hope to die. So then my mother came out and I was gone, and so they managed retrieving me. And so my mother, when sometimes she gets upset when she says, "Tera to langur prabhuti hai." Okay, so I said, my God, you know, I wrote a letter to Amitaji. I mean, he didn't know me, I didn't know him. I said, listen, this is what happened, and I'm very drawn to your drawings, and I have langur prabhuti. And so he wrote back. And by then I decided I'm going to call my show Prakriti and Prabhuti. That fit in very well. It's about architecture, it's about nature, it's about built up environment, as opposed, you know, just juxtaposed against, you know, natural environment. And I'm constantly trying to not be violent, you know, not use, forget about the computer, I don't even want to use set squares and T-squares, you know. That's where the tragedy happens. Like Pythagoras had talked about the 3, 4, 5 proportion and the right angle for a specific cause. It was about plotting land, you know, which otherwise sort of the demarcation floats out in the river in a flood. But we are stuck with that, which is part of our bhed chal nature. You know, just follow the leader blindly. People also followed Gandhi blindly. People are following Corbusier blindly. Still, Corbusier came, he did काफ़ी अच्छा बिल्डिंग बनाए. अपना देश में जो अच्छा किए, यहाँ जो कर रहे, it didn't have a relevance. Sometimes he talked about, you know, Vastu Purusa Mandala. How much did he know about Vastu Purusa Mandala? I have big questions in my head. So did Louis Kahn, a lot of other, you know, Angrez architects. So, you know, like, and we talking about local architecture. Also, we could be doing local architecture in a foreign way. You know, our green certificate that Greer gives. Sometimes I tell them, why don't you paint the buildings green? It'll be easier to give certificates. You know? So to be green, to be natural, to be non-violent means you have to be part of the earth, part of nature, your nature, and nature's nature has to match. Then there'll be non-violence.
True.
So I thought alchemy also happens. What is alchemy? I did a egg tempera workshop, and I attended an egg tempera workshop with Frenchman, and he got us color, earth color, 500 rupees of earth color. He says, you 20 people can paint for 5 years, you don't finish. You know, and the rule was not to use artificial color. So one of my student friends had done a painting which looked like gold. You know, that's where I realized that this is actually alchemy. You know how we juxtapose one color against other, like look at calendar art. There's so much gold. It's not gold. It's not true gold. All that glitters is not gold. But alchemy is happening there. Then I thought, in architecture, can we do this? Create very strong structure, very relevant to our time structures without having to use cement, concrete, steel, because that's had been. That's like about industry,
Yeah.
Tata's, Birlas will die of hunger if we don't buy steel, if you don't buy cement. So I've been constantly trying to build with local material. Wherever I go, my building changes, and I copy things which people have been doing that for many years, many century maybe. So I decided to talk about all the things I had done for peanuts in terms of money, because I work with local material in a local way. All right, not in a foreign way. And so I was invited to do a talk at Vizag, at Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Technology. And first I registered because this was before my last show. Then I started thinking, I talk extempore, but this time I wrote it down. It took me 27 days, day and night, with tiny bit of sleep now and then, to think over it. And so I was very excited about sharing this idea of building out of nothing. So it was called architecture and alchemy. But the moment I got into the campus, I was horrified with all the straight, tall, lanky buildings, and I was horrified with all the women who wear jewelry and silk saris and all the men who had bow ties. I was like horrified. I said, I can't talk here. It's not architecture and alchemy here. It's architecture and anarchy. So I changed the topic to architecture and anarchy.
And how did you explain it to them? What is alchemy?
Well, I was quite aggressive because I was very disturbed. So when all the professors were sitting in front, all the kids were at the back, that was disturbing for me also. So they were looking at me with a lot of expectation. I said, I'm putting all my weapons down. You might kill me. But I have to tell you guys all robots. Like everybody followed Mahatma Gandhi, I guess, without knowing what freedom was. If they understood what freedom was, we won't be in this state now. All of us are, in this state where now we have to exodus that space. If you knew what freedom, we don't have to tell people about that. So
you would have nurtured it.
Yeah.
You could have,
So you guys are all imprisoned with the idea of the computer, the idea of the set square and the T square, and what Corbusier did, what Frank Lloyd Wright did, or what Doshi did. Every building has to be site specific, people specific. Like the Mitti tells him, Kumar, how to do the matka. The site, the surrounding of the site, its ambience, people that live in it, the buildings around it should tell you what to build. And how can you not do that? If you're not doing that, it's about money. If you're doing that, you might not earn any money, but which is okay, because everything shouldn't be valued in terms of money.
About
I mean,
money.
I'm not paying you to do this. You've come to interview me because we have something in common. We're sharing.
True.
For example, one thing. So alchemy. This is alchemy.
Yeah. So I completely get your point, Golak, but there is a practical side to living. How do you believe that architecture? I mean, you were doing one project at a day, at a time.
Yeah, I could do it one day, 1 hour. It's not like that. Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is you took up one project at one time, and when you finished with one, then you took up another. And I think one of the questions which was also asked by others to you is how can one manage this?
Oh, well, it's about conditioning, sweetheart. It's about conditioning that I need so much money. I want my air conditioner. First of all, you don't need air conditioner. All the buildings I've done, I don't even have fans.
Yeah.
Okay. It's about conditioning. And you want to do something, you find a way. You're very keen on achieving something, so you do the impossible. Like Pradip's lighting grid. I did it for 200 rupees instead of a lakh. We did the Jaipur project for 11 crores. In terms where the estimated cost could have been 130 crores. Okay. So you manage doing that. You have to question many times. Otherwise there'll be no creation.
Yes.
If artists just copy each other or architects copy each other, you're doing a lot of damage to your own mind, to other people's mind, and you are part of the bhed chal.
And I kind of the philosophy of thinking before doing anything.
Yeah.
You know? Questioning yourself,
Yeah.
whether you really need it, where
You
are
doing
you
a doors or
located.
window?
But you know, in Ahmedabad, I have found one architecture. There's a lot of British architecture here. I found in one of the architecture, which is a new building, how compatible it was to its surrounding. So, in modern times, it is possible to do it.
Of course.
I mean, if people say now they are compelled to do whatever is being done elsewhere and all that, so there's no compulsion.
That's a bit of
It's
craziness.
yeah.
But talking
yeah.
about making a living, carpenters and masons make a living.
Yes.
They have a very good life. They have a certain kind of conditioning.
Yeah.
I said, if a carpenter can live on 60 rupees a day with his family,
Yeah.
so can I.
Yeah.
So, and then I took 60 rupees a day for my first project. By the time I came to do Pradip's house, I hiked my rate to 100 rupees a day.
Yeah.
And now I don't take any money at all when I do projects. Ideally, for public sort of projects where there are many people I can work together,
Yeah.
it's not for an individual client. When an individual client is in a position to hire an architect, he's also in the habit of squandering. You see,
Yeah.
squandering is about how much money you have. Sometimes maybe it's, you grow a lot of stuff and you compost it. That's also kind of squandering. COVID time में हुआ था ना, बहुत सारी चीजें. But money is the benchmark. Money is
true,
the
true.
what do you call the measuring device. And so,
Yeah.
are we going to wind up now? Do you have some more questions?
I have many more questions, Golak, but I guess that looking at all the people who are coming to visit your gallery.
Let's continue it next year or next life,
Yes.
because time never ends.
Time never ends, and we can talk
And talk.
and talk and talk. But I am very happy that we managed to catch you on your exhibition.
I don't say catch me
and
if you
display.
can. I'm always available all the time. I have all the time in the world. I made friendship with time.
Yeah.
I go on roller coaster rides, but you can catch me when I'm still.
Yeah.
Most
But
of the time.
then we had to follow you, run after you,
No,
chase
no,
you.
no.
So, well, thank you very much.
You're
for
most
this,
welcome.
for
It's
whatever
been
you
great
said.
joy. Without you, this program wouldn't have happened.
Well, it's nice of you to think so. But thank you very much. Namaskar.
Pranam.